Hello and welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's Adam Ratliff with Adam So Fun, and we are jumping into our second of 3 whole cloth videos that we're doing for this whole cloth series. Today we're going to be using the fabulous Quiltable. Thank you, Quiltable, always sponsoring and sending me things so I can pass them along to you. So a big shout out, thank you to Quiltable. We're going to be using their Versailles pattern, their Versailles whole cloth pattern. And also thank you to Quiltable for allowing me to pass some savings on to you. So remember, code ASF, like Adam So Fun, ASF10 will get you 10% off of your purchase there, and it's an additional 10% off. So if you're a club member, it gives you 10% off of your already savings. So saving. So thank you, Quiltable, for being such a huge supporter of my channel. That I love. Hey, before we jump into everything, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you're notified when new videos drop and if there's new things that I can save you money on. That's always good too. And if you haven't, make sure you follow me on social media, Adam So Fun with an SEW on Facebook and Instagram, where you see a lot of stuff that happens that doesn't make it to the videos. If you are a follower there, you've already seen all these quilts because I posted pictures as soon as they're done. Yesterday I was doing a live on my page, and I was telling them I have 3 quilts and I have to get them done by tomorrow. So this is going to be number 2, and then I'll have another one this afternoon, and I'm filming for all of them, so which takes a little bit of time because you got to run through stuff. Luckily, I woke up at 2 a.m. and couldn't sleep because I was thinking of all the things I need to get done this week. But that's for another topic, another day. That's where, I don't know. If you are on social media, make sure you join the So Fun community where we post pictures, we ask questions, and really we're just there to pat everyone on the back and say that they're fabulous, because sometimes you need a little bit of positivity to make it through the day. It's 2022 and things are getting better. They can only go up. That's what I keep saying. So we're going to be using the Versailles pattern. In the last video, we used the Midas pattern, also from Quiltable. I'll link them both below. But if you haven't seen those Midas videos, go look, because in that video, we used the design as a whole cloth. Quiltable sells it. You don't find this very often, but they sell it as a whole cloth. Here's the whole 50 pieces. It wasn't that many, but I don't know. We'll say it was 20 pieces. So here's 20 pieces all put together. When you open it in Pro Stitcher, all 20 pieces are there, which is fabulous. It's great. But you have to think about what you're doing, and sometimes you need to kind of pick and choose what you want to stitch. So in those videos, I show you how you can go in and say, okay, well, this design is 5 pieces, but I only want the middle 3. How can I stitch those? So I show you how to stitch it. We didn't crop or anything. I just told the machine stitch here. So if you, like I said, if you haven't seen those videos, go back to those videos, check those out. You've seen that. If you haven't, go Facebook. You see the pictures. I stitched it on a Dream Big dance panel, which, well, it did look like it was down here. Oh, I think it's actually this panel. I had an extra one. So I stitched that one on this panel because I wanted to stitch a panel. Today we're going to be stitching on solids. So I'm going to be stitching on a solid. This is going to be, this is Jam, one of the solids from Connecting Threads. I love their solids. They're buttery soft. I use them a lot. They have their own shelf, and they're all folded and laid out rainbow. Not because I like rainbows, but because I like things to be orderly and I can pick the right color I need from the right section. So I'm going to be using the Jam fabric, and we're going real crazy. We're going to be using metallic thread today because I know a lot of you are really scared about stepping out of your comfort zone. So this is Superior Threads Metallic. It is fancy color, violet. I think it's going to look pretty good. We're going to find out. It's either going to be a swing and a miss, or it's going to look great. I think it looks good when the light hits it and it shines. It is going to blend a little bit, so if there were little bobbles or things, we're not going to see that as much, but it's shiny, so we're going to see it shine. And I think this is color N11, correct. So it's Violet Metallic from Superior. We're using the Connecting Threads. I do have an affiliate code for Connecting Threads, so if you're on Facebook, you can click it. I'll put the link below as well, so I get a little kickback there. I purchased this fabric. I do get some things for free, but I actually bought this. Like I said, I really like their stuff, and I spend a lot of money in Connecting Threads just because. And then the other 2 quilts that I'm going to be doing in the next few days are both connecting threads as well. So backing, I just pulled something out of my stash. I'm going to be stitching this at 35 square. I think the design is actually digitized for a 30-inch square, but I wanted it a little bit bigger. I didn't want to have to piece a backing though, so I kept it at 35 instead of going up to 40. Like the Dream Big panels, I always have to piece a little strip and then it goes too big, and I didn't want to deal with that. We're doing just a single width of fabric, and that's loaded. I'm going to be stitching with 2 layers of batting. This is just a Quilter's Dream poly. I love Quilter's Dream. I talk about it all the time. This is Quilter's Dream wool. I actually found this like scrap in a box outside, and this will be the same batting that I used in the Midas quilt. So you can kind of see how they work in different applications. I am going to do things a little bit different here. So with the Midas quilt, we used that whole cloth design, and we just brought it in and stitched it. They give you the option of purchasing that Midas design in rows. So if you don't have an infinity, you don't have 26 inches in your throat, the rows might be a better option because you can stitch 1 row at a time. Although how I showed you how to do it, you could still do it with the whole cloth. It's just going to take some maneuvering and making sure that everything's going to fit when you stitch those sections. But I was still, we still picked our sections and stuff. The Versailles, I believe, is also sold as that whole cloth, and that doesn't happen very often. It's I think it's something that's somewhat unique to Quiltable. I know that none of the whole cloths I've purchased have ever had that happen, because usually when I purchase a design, so this is a Judy Niemeyer, this is the Summer Solstice pattern, and the design that I purchased for this, we're going to talk about like this New York Beauty. There's 7 elements to the New York Beauty, and they were all separate. So it's 7 different pieces, and I had 8 of these. So I had a lot of New York Beauty little diamonds through this quilt, or triangles, or whatever they are. But you really need them separate because you're placing them in specific spots, and if something shifts or you didn't have a good seam, those things. So I like the fact that it's different. When you're doing a whole cloth, you don't really need them different, other than you want it to be able to stitch in your space. So I'm not going to use the whole cloth design that is there. I'm using the pieces. So I'm going to actually just pull out the pieces. We're going to be using Pro Stitcher Designer. And the thing with this, I'm going to show you how, if you don't have this, maybe you have a Moxie. So you're a new Moxie owner and you bought Pro Stitcher Lite and you just got it in the mail and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this Versailles quilt and I want to make it. Well, you can't make it the way it's digitized. It's too big. It's not going to fit in your throat. The center design itself is 15 inches tall. So that's just a no-go. But I show you in Pro Stitcher Designer how you can split that design in 2 and reline it up and redo the sections so you can make those sections fit in your throat, and then you can also make this design. So we're going to go through, I'm going to show you how to get the pieces, create the whole cloth using your grid lines and other lines that you can find in the design. We're going to get it there. We're going to set it up so it stitches in 3 passes. So you can basically stitch the center pass, move up, stitch the top pass, move down, stitch the bottom pass, and be done. So it's going to be a really quick project. And then once we get everything set up there, the next video, so video 2, I will load this. We're going to find the center because I want to find the center. It's a solid piece of fabric. I could really just start at the top and stitch down if I wanted to because I'm using solid fabric. The center doesn't matter because I'm going to trim around it anyway. But in case you have something that you need to find the center, we're going to talk about that. We're going to load it up. I'm using my Sew Tight magnets because I'm super excited about those. I'll post a link at the bottom, and ASF10 will save you 15% off there. I told everyone, I'm like, every code needs to be ASF10 so people don't get confused. So it's a 10, but it's 15% off at Sew Tights if you like those magnets. But in the second video, we'll find the center, load this up, take it over here, talk about stitching with our metallic thread and what settings we need to change over there, and then stitch it out. But this first video is very cool because we get in there, we set the design up, get it exactly how we want it to stitch out, save it, and I show you how to save it from a whole cloth file to just specific pieces. We'll bring it over on our thumb drive and then we'll stitch it out in the next video. So we're going to jump over into Pro Stitcher Designer. I'm pointing at my computer that you can't see, and then I will see you back here when I'm done.
All right, everyone, here we are, and we are in Pro Stitcher Studio. So today, like I said in the intro, we're going to be working on the Versailles pattern. And the Versailles pattern from Quiltable comes in two ways. I'm going to pop over here, and I'm already in my Versailles section. Let me open this up so you can see. So it comes in the whole cloth, kind of like we used in the, let's see, there we go. Just like we used in the previous Midas whole cloth quilt we did. But I want to show you a different way to set this up. Maybe you have an Avante or something that doesn't have, maybe you don't even have a handy quilter. Maybe you have a different machine that doesn't have the 20-inch throat or bigger, because this one's designed to have at least a 20-inch throat on it, a Moxie, for instance. So you can't stitch this one out because the pieces are just going to be too big. It's not going to work for you. But if you have Pro Stitcher Designer, you can come in here in this in Designer and you can change things up. So this one's actually set to stitch out, I think 30 by 30, and I can see the dimensions up here. And I want to stitch mine out at 35 by 35, only because I'm lazy and I don't feel like cutting more fabric and making a backing. So I wanted to be able to just stitch it on a width of fabric. I could use this, like I said, we used it in the Midas design, but I don't want to use this. I want to create my own. So I do have the blocks, and I have block 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This quilt really only uses the center block. This would be block 1. This piece, which would be piece 2, I'm going to call them, it's in a block piece. So this would be piece 1. Piece 2 is this kind of shape that's just copied and flipped to make this kind of V shape around. This piece right here, which is nice, they give you the whole unit for. And then this outside. So there's really only 4 pieces that are repeated. This is so fancy. Feathers are always fancy. This is just a super fancy looking block. So let me see. I've already put this all together and done basically what we're going to do today, so I could make sure it worked. All right. So I'm just going to copy over the pieces we need, and I'm going to, let's zoom out, paste these, move them around. So one thing I noticed, and I don't know if this is my files or if this is how they were sent to me, but these files did not open at this size. So I think, let's see, if I open block 1, I bring it over here, you can see the size difference. I went in and I actually looked at the sizes on the original block and resized these. So if you're going to be doing this, I'm going to go through and show you, and then you can screenshot or write these dimensions down for yourself so you can put them in. But the center block, it needs to be 15 by 15 for this to work. So when you open it, you're just going to come over here. This maintain aspect ratio is always on, and to resize that block, you're going to type in your size, and I think it's a little smaller, so let's say it started at 12. So it's going to start here. We need it to be 15, so over on our side, highlight one of these, type in 15, hit apply, and now that block is going to be 15 by 15. Our little tiny block, I'm going to call this the L, because it looks like an L, although it's backwards right now. When it's rotated on its side, so when it's like this shape, make this shape, the width should be 7.5. So rotate it to look like mine. I'll zoom in on the blocks. How about I do this? And I zoom into this section so we can see these a little better. That big one just really messes with the zoom. All right, so when you have this shape for the L, and it can be the mirror image, that's fine. We want the width to be 7.5. Apply. Done. This piece, this one we're going to want to be the width to be 8.5. And I think I actually, is that right? No, 8.5 works. And this one, I'll show you how you can kind of maneuver it and change it a little bit depending on what you're looking for. And then this piece right here, we want to, again, you want it to turn it on its 45-degree angle. And we want this piece, the width to be 9.5. So it'll almost be square. It's not perfectly square, and that's fine. So we have the corner piece at 9.5 width. The kind of inserts, that's what I'm going to call these ones, 8.5 width when it's on its side. The L-shaped piece, 7.5 width. And then the center block, 15 by 15. And that's it. These are the only 4 blocks that we need to make this whole thing. So I'm going to pick these all up and open. I'm going to copy them, open a new page, and paste them. So I selected them all by just dragging and dropping a box. I hit Control Copy to copy them. I hit Control N, which opened that new page, and then I hit Control V to paste. All right, so now that we're here, we want to start with that center block. So I'm going to select my center block, and up on my Modify tools, I'm going to select Modify, and this designer is just like Pro Stitcher. It's tabs, ribbon, sidebar. You don't always have to use the sidebar, but that's where you get a lot of stuff. So under Modify, there's this button to Origin, and it will center the center of this design to the center of our kind of grid. So I'm going to hit to Origin. All right, so now that we have our building blocks, we just have to build our design. We just have to put everything in. You'll see jumps. We're opening actual stitch designs. They're not artwork. They're not. They're actual designs that we're opening. So you're going to see jumps. Every time we add something, it's going to add a jump and stuff. So just ignore them. You can go into, you can turn off stitches. Well, that didn't work. Oh, no, we want to see stitches. Starts and ends. Stitches would have turned off your jumps, but we want to see the stitches. Oh, that's right, because if you turn off stitches, it turns off anything that has stitches applied. Like we can turn off artwork and everything will stay there, but it's because it's artwork. We can hit realistic, and then it looks like real stitches when you zoom in. I don't use it that much, but it. Oh, did it? Oh, it turned the jumps off. Maybe we'll use realistic, just because it makes it a little thicker, easier to see, and it turned those jumps off for us. So, nope, it's going to bug me looking at it like that. But that's what realistic does. All right, so we're going to start with this piece. And first thing first, it sits on this one like that, which means this piece is going to live. Wait, is that right? Oh, yeah. So this piece, if it's out there, is going to live somewhere about there. And the only reason we're starting here is because this is the only piece in the whole design that has a place where it needs to touch something else. So I'm going to select it, right-click and copy, right-click and paste. So I have the second one. And I need to have that mirror image. So I'm going to go up to my tools and modify. And I'm going to mirror this. And now I have the mirror image of that. But it does need to be rotated. So we're rotating around. And these two, I'm going to zoom into this section, are going to sit on this design somewhat like this, and they need to kiss. But we do want to be a little more accurate than just like, oh yeah, they look good. I have turned off my snap to grid to get to that little screen. I came up to my ruler and I hit right click. I have anchor points on, but I have my snap to grid off because I don't want the grid to kind of move my pieces. So let's zoom in, and we can see that this center piece is a square. And we're going to say that this is going to be the corner of that square. So if I'm going to move these out of the way so you can see what I'm kind of talking about. If I had a line, and I'm just going to hit L so I can draw a line, and I draw this line on the diagonal, I want to move this. We'll We'll just put it about right there. So I have this line on the diagonal. I want these two pieces to meet up on that diagonal, because if they meet up on that diagonal, everything's going to look like it belongs there, because this diagonal is going to slide all the way and end up hitting our center point. So if I zoom back in to where we're working, I have all of these intersections that I can work with on this diagonal. So I'm going to just hit my select tool, which is the arrow, pick one of my designs, and I'm just thinking, let's go 1/4 inch out. They don't need to be super far. We'll see what it looks like. And I'm going to put my corner right at that 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to grab this one and drag and drop the corner on the 1/4 inch. And that's how easy this stuff is. And you know, people get really scared of designer. I mean, this is designer. This is how easy it is. And now those two meet up. They look really good. Let's say I'm going to select them both. And if you have things selected, you can hit Control and use your arrows. Let's say I thought, you know, I originally picked to be a little farther out. So I'm just moving this on that diagonal. I would always stay on that diagonal. Zoom out. You know, maybe you wanted to do something like this. This is also your way to customize these designs. You can change the layout. You can make things bigger and smaller and shift them. So if you wanted to go in and do a lot of like dense stitching and thread play in the negative space, you can move this out and create more negative space and still have a really good look, because everything's going to be symmetrical because you're using your grids to line everything up. In my case, I like them on that 1/4 inch. So I'm going to select them again. I'm selecting one, hitting Control, selecting the other one, and I'm just going to drag them back to here. And they're not perfect. This is not going to be perfect. It's going to be pretty perfect, but see, they're not really touching, but we're zoomed in 155%. If I wanted to get nitpicky, I can select this one, which is the one that's off a little bit, hold Control, and use my arrows to kind of nudge it in. And then I can do the same thing here, and nudge it in. And I can get really nitpicky. But once these two are set, they're set for life. Or not for life, but for the rest of this project. Those two are that's how these two are going to look. So we have our first piece set, or I guess our first two pieces. Now we're going to pick up this corner piece, which is sitting over here off in La La Land. I'll zoom into this same section. And we're going to do the same thing with the corner piece that we did with the other pieces. We're going to use the diagonal as a reference. We have a corner. We have this intersection right here. So I'm just going to drop it down, pick a corner where I think it looks good, zoom out, and if I don't like it, if I feel I need more space, I can hit Control and use my arrows and just move it out 1/4 inch, or I can just grab it. So let's see what this intersection looks like. I like that, but I think I'm going to turn this, or I'm going to delete that line. I think I want it a little closer because these are also close. So I'm going to keep everything in that kind of same close radiuses. Radius is the wrong word, but whatever. Let's see, I'm selecting it. So I'm hitting my select tool, picking my design, and then I'm going to move it with my arrows. And I'm just using my keyboard arrows while holding Control. And we have that quadrant done. I really like how that looks. I mean, again, you are the master and you are the creator of this. So you have free reign to edit and change and do anything you want. Once you get your corner done, this is the important thing. Once you get your corner done, it's just a matter of placing the other 4 corners. So moving that out of the way. So I'm going to select this piece, select my bottom piece, and select my corner piece. So my 2 L's and my corner. I'm going to copy, paste, and I'm going to bring that down here. And I'm going to right click, paste, and I'm going to bring that section over here. And I'm going to right click, paste, and bring that last section over here. Because we just need these 4 quadrants. Now, since this one's selected, we'll just start here. I'm going to rotate it. And we already know where we need to put it because we did it up here. I'm going to zoom in. And if we look at this corner piece, we're just 1/4 inch away. So if I come back and zoom in down here, we have that same corner piece. We need this intersection right there. So I'm going to hit my select tool. Make sure I pick up all the pieces. So this is my outside piece, my one L piece, my other L piece. Zoom in, drag and drop. I'm zooming out. Those ones are done. Now I'll pick up this side, rotate it, hit my zoom, zoom in, pick up my pieces. There's my 1/4 inch. Oops. There's my 1/4 inch. Now that section's done, and we can go into the final one, pick up my pieces, rotate it, zoom in, pick it up, drop my pieces at my 1/4 inch. Now that one's done. How fast was that? I mean, I think it's been less than 20 minutes because I'm making oatmeal and my timer hasn't went off. So now the last piece is to set this guy into our section. So I'm going to drop him here and I'm going to zoom in. And there's a few things you can do. I mean, I definitely set this up the way I thought I liked it, but just like we had that diagonal line as a reference point, we have this 0 line as our reference point. So as long as the point of this design is on that 0 somewhere, this design is going to look okay. That just randomly went there. I did not put that there on purpose. So my point's on 0, which means that design is centered. You can see that 0 is running through everything. I will zoom in to just this section. I want to zoom. Oh, there we go. I'm zooming out so we don't see the grid lines. I'm just going to hit Control, or I've selected, oops, and hit Control, and I'm hitting to the left. And you can just go to the left until you think it looks good. Remember, you get to place this. What I did when I did this is, if we look at these lines over, or these final 2 points over here, this design also has a point on it. So I just took this, they come right past this kind of 1/2 inch line at 14.5. You can see 14.5 right there. So I went to the 14.5 line with this final point. So I selected it, hit Control, moved it until my bounding box was at 14.5. And that's how I lined mine up. And now I have that same reference point. So sometimes I select and move it. I moved it a little bit. Select it, copy, and paste. And I'll drop one there. And I'm just going to hit Control V for paste, Control V. I have my 2 other pieces. We're going to zoom into this one, select it, rotate it, put my point on my intersection, and bring my bounding box to my line. And it still should be 14.5 because remember, this is a square. So I'm going to hold Control, go up to 14.5. Looks like it needs to come over a tidbit. And it's just me getting fussy now. Now that piece is placed. Did I just move that design? I did. I have a tendency to click things and move them on accident. This one needs to be mirrored. We need to put it on the right line. Move up. There we go. And, oh, that was almost right. Oh, no, it's not. Come into 14.5. And it's nice because we have a lot of lines. We have our grid work, but we have a lot of lines. We have the bounding box that we can also use. And let me come down to the final one. Rotate. I'm just going to use my arrows to get it to where I need it to be. And scroll down so I can see 14.5. Bring it up. And there we have it. We've set the design up as a whole cloth for our specific needs. I'm going to select everything. Oops, my oatmeal's done. I'm going to select my whole design, and look at this. I'm 29.84 square, and the original design was 30 inches square. So I did a pretty good job setting this design up. Now to the next step, which is kind of mind blown. All right, here we are. We have our design done. So this next step I want to take this design and I want to split it up into sections. Basically split it up into rows that I can stitch on my machine in my throat space. So if I click on like this corner piece and click on it and not move it, if I come over here and I have my transform selected, this is 10 inches high. So if you had a machine that has a 10-inch throat, or that you can stitch a 10-inch pass, you can stitch this out. And you could stitch basically this piece, I'm going to select these, this middle piece, this one, and this one. And this would be your first pass. I'm going to turn this orange. So everything orange, you could stitch in that first pass. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We're going to pick and choose how we want to stitch this out to be able to fit in our throat. The big problem here is going to be the center piece, because it is 15 by 15. So if you wanted to actually stitch this and do this on a smaller frame, I'm just copying and bringing this over here. You'd have to do something to split basically all of this design up. It would be easy enough. I mean, I don't know that I didn't actually look at the stitch path here, but I mean, it would take a little bit more work because you're going to have to go in and split lines and such. So if you see how this stitches, it's doing part of the center and then it's doing the outside. And yesterday in the Midas video, I was talking about running the stitch out and seeing how the stitch out works. And this is what I was talking about. I was running this to see what was stitching in what direction and at what time and point and stuff. The hard part is going to be, I think, how these work. So basically, how this stitched out, it did half of this and then this kind of outside edge. And then came in and stitched this interior piece and the outside, the interior, the outside, the interior, the outside. So if you were wanting, you have a Moxie and you can't stitch, you have Moxie and Pro Stitcher Lite. You actually don't even have Pro Stitcher Designer unless you purchase it. It is a purchase. You can purchase it. If you ask your retailer, they can give you a discount code that saves you, I think, 15% off the purchase price. If you need a discount code, email me. I can get you one if they don't know what you're talking about. But once you have Pro Stitcher Designer, you can do things like this. So let's say I'm going to come in here. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to just cut out this one corner piece right here. So if I come to my shape tool and I select the design, I have to actually, I want to click on this, right click, and I want to convert to outlines. Now I can edit things. What did it? Did it split it up for us? Oh no, it only split up that one. And this one, well, that's kind of exciting. This one you don't even have to split. Oh yeah, you do. Okay, let's undo. All right, I got really excited, but I shouldn't have, because it didn't really work. So what I want to do is zoom into this intersection. And this is kind of the intersection where it all happens. So I'm going to use my shape tool on this guy. And I want to come in, and that's the point I want. So I'm going to hit undo because I don't want to move that point. Right click on this point, and if I hit split line, I now have that section. Oh, I split the line in the wrong spot. Undo, undo. So let's see if I can get it in the right spot. Select. Oh, I did one too many undos. What's going on? Oh, I'm on the wrong tool. Okay, convert to outlines. I undid too much. So I'm coming here, my shape tool, and this is the one I want to split. Put it back where it goes. And now I'm going to come up and do the same thing on the other side. At this intersection, I will zoom in, my shape tool, split line, then we'll move the pieces back. I always like to move the pieces back where they're supposed to go before I start zooming out. And now if you look, I can select the pieces of this, right click, connect, and now I've taken out this one piece. This one piece is only less than 7.5 inches tall. So you could stitch this piece, or like this corner. Let me undo this and put it back where it goes. You could stitch basically half of this. So really, you wouldn't even have to split all of these pieces out. You would just have to split down the center. And you can, that would actually be a little bit easier because you would just have to split the line. This is me going off on a tangent. If you split the line right here, and if you split the line right here, and now everything above this, connect, will turn pink. Everything below this will teal. And now you would stitch, oh, I wanted to connect those two. So now you've split this 15-inch pass into two 7.5-inch passes, and now you can do this on your Moxie with Pro Stitcher Lite. You can do this on a 16 or an Avante now because you have the throat space to be able to fit this in your throat. So this is one of the advantages of Designer. You can come in, and that's the whole point of Designer, is you can come in and you can change these designs to fit your needs and make them exactly how you want. So we're going to kind of do something like this, not that detailed, but we're going to come in here and we're creating these passes that fit in our throat space. So if I pick this piece and here, so this next pass, this height is 16. That's still doable. We're okay there. If we didn't want it quite as tall, I could take off. I'm not picking up these leaves, so I'm going to pick up the center pieces, the top leaves, and my 15-inch square. We'll turn this red. Well, I deselected everything else. We'll turn this red. Oh my gosh, what's going on? Control. Oh, I'm hitting shift, dummy. I've been up since 3 a.m. Work with me. There you go. So now if I pick up all these red pieces, the height of this is only 16, is less than 15.5, a little over 15.5, easily fits in a lot of people's throats. So maybe that's your second run. And I'm going to, because that one's orange, let's change this one to like green so you can see them opposite each other. And then the final pass, we know that this one fits because this is kind of what we did the first time. This height is 13. Let's shade it purple. And now we've set this up into 3 passes that will fit into our throat. So the next thing we have to do is we have to put these in kind of an order that makes sense. Usually, per like me, how I like to stitch, if I'm doing a whole cloth, I always stitch from the inside out. You could do this from the top down, nothing wrong with it, but if you have a center point marked, the center point is going to be your center. So if I'm working on this, and green is going to be my first row. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. File, save as, and let's just call this Versailles. We're going to call this Versailles 30 because this is the 30-inch. It's a C2S file because that's how the file type that Pro Stitcher Designer uses. So we're going to start with green, and I'm going to come over here. I want to see my sequence view because I'm in my designs right now. I'm going to pop this up. And I want all of my green things. See how they're all just in separate places here because it was where I copied and pasted. So if I come over here to the left and I select them all using my control, and I should have done this when I recolored them, and I right click, I want to just group these. And now if I look over here, I have one green group. So I'm going to do the same thing to the orange, right click, group, and do the same thing to the purple. Right click, group. So now I have 3 groups. Easier to see stuff. I can make them bigger, see what's in my group. This is where it's going to get a little weird. Let's start with the orange group. I'm going to extend this. I can't do anything to one piece of this group because they're grouped up. I wanted to group them so they were actually together and easier to kind of work with. But now I'm going to select them all, right click and hit ungroup. It keeps them in their color family so I can rearrange the orders easier, but it breaks them up so I can pick one at a time. Like in the green, if I make the green larger, I can't pick one at a time. I always have to pick everything, but by ungrouping it, you can pick which ones you want to stitch. So now we get to pick how I want it to stitch, where I want to start. Because of this intersection here, I want to start with this left piece and then go to this right piece. So I want, actually number 1 needs to be number 2. I'm going to leave it there for a second. Number 3 needs to be number 1. So here's 3. I'm just going to drag it up to 1, and it's going to drop to space 2. You can't drag anything to 1. To be able to get to 1, you have to bring 1 down to 2. Very confusing. But if I look at my piece 1, it's on the right. And if I look at my piece 2, it's on the left. Just me, Adam's weirdness, I like to stitch on the left first. So if I click and hold on 1, I can drag it down to 2, and now I've switched their places. So we're going to start with this one. We'll go on to 2, and then from there I don't care. 3, corner, 4. Okay, yes, I do care. I want this one to be 3, and then I want it to be 4 and 5, last one left. So it's going to do the first L on the left, the second L on the right, the center piece, and then it's going to do the outside left, outside right. Weird. You get to pick your order. You are the master of your order. Okay? This is just me being a weirdo. Oh, this first pass, that's right. We did this first passes at 10 to fit the smaller machine. So this first pass is something like if you had to do it down here, you might have to do these L shapes. All right, so we have this first pass done, and great. We'll go on to the green. First thing I need to do, right click, ungroup. Oh, before we go on. All right, so the orange pass is done. Before I go on, I want to select them all, right click, and regroup them up. I want to be, if I select one piece, I want it to select them all. I've reordered them. They're in the order that I wanted to stitch, but now they're grouped back as one piece. So now we're going to green. I'm going to select it, right click, ungroup it. And now we're going to reorder it. And I definitely want the center piece to stitch first, because this is going to be the first thing we stitch out of everything. So center piece first, and then maybe the left pieces and then the right pieces. That should work here. So this one I want to stitch second. And then this is going to be third. So if I drop it on 7, it ends up at 8. So just remember that. It's always going to drop one number down from where you think you're putting it. So there we are. So it's going to do the center, the left, we're going to say left center, then the L, then the right center, and then the L. Once I have everything, I want to select them all. And you can select them all by coming over here and just hitting the color as well. Right click and group. I want to group them back. It's very important that you group them back at the end. And then now we're going to the purple group. Right click, ungroup. I'm going to minimize these so they're out of the way. And we're going to, again, these have the the L shapes stitching together, so I want to keep them together because they are made to stitch together. So these two I want first. And this takes a second. I mean, it's not the fastest, but it's going to make things easier in the long run. Uh-oh, I just messed something up. I want that one too. So 11, 12. I want 13 and then the other L, 14. Perfect. Let's pick up the center piece next. So center piece is 15. And then 17 on the left, or 16 on the left, 17 on the right. So we'll run through these. So L piece, L piece, L piece, L piece, center piece, left, right. Perfect. I'm going to select them all, right click, group. So now this is basically set up in 3 passes. Pass 1 would be green, 2 would be orange, 3 would be purple, or vice versa, however you want to stitch it. I just always start with green. So I'm going to come over and file save this, just so it's saved, because we've done a lot of work so far. So now we have to change the way this stitches out. So there's a few things. One of the things I decided in the one that I'm going to stitch out, it's 35 inches. So if I pick this whole design, we see it's 30 inches. I wanted 35 or 29.84. I just went over here. I made sure maintain aspect ratio was selected. I typed in 35 and I hit apply. If you're going to do this, if you're going to stitch these bigger, stitch them bigger before you start picking your rows. Because now this first row is 11.16 inches high, where before it was like 9.5. So it will change how tall things are, and you need to adjust your rows that you're stitching out, especially if you have a smaller throat, because maybe you can't, you can only get X amount, and if you increase that and you don't come back and look, it might not fit anymore. I'm going to go hit undo because I don't want it bigger. So we have our 3 rows. Now we have to save those stitch files. I can come over here, I can hit stitch out. You can see it's going to go orange, green, purple, because that's how they're ordered over here. This order over here doesn't really matter because we're going to save them separately anyway. But I can come and check the stitch out and then see how everything's going to work together. I could watch this all day. I do love watching these, especially when it's super fast like that. So there's our stitch out. It looks great. So I'm going to pick row 1, which is our green. And I'm going to come up here, file, and I'm saving the design that I'm going to take to my Pro Stitcher. This is the one that I'm going to use on the machine. And I'm going to hit, I want to make sure, this should still be an origin. Perfect. All right, so select my green. There's a reason that I use to origin at the beginning, and I'm going to show you why whenever we actually go over to Pro Stitcher. But I'm going to select my design. This is my row 1. File, save as. I want to save this design as a stitch design. So I'm going to pick the file for my machine, which is HQV. And right here, there's this button that says selection only. I'm going to click this because I only want row 1. So this is Versailles 30, row 1. Save. Now I'm going to pick the orange. And I'm going to say File, Save As. I'm going to click this down arrow over here as the Save As type. I want HQV. I want selection only. And I'm going to be Versailles 30, row 2. Save. Now on the third one, oops, I moved it. On the third one, I'm going to hit File, Save As, hit the down arrow, HQV. I'm going to forget to hit Selection Only. We're hitting this because we want to, if you wanted to save the whole thing as one piece, you don't have to hit this. This Selection Only is telling the machine, I only want to save the part that is selected. I'm going to forget it. Oops, I forgot it. Row 3. Row 3. Save. So now these are ready to put on a thumb drive and take over to Pro Stitcher. Wow, by the magic of computers, I have Pro Stitcher Simulator right here. I'm going to go File, Design, Open. And you'll see that I have these 35 groups. These are for me for the video whenever I actually go stitch this out. And in mine, I can do it in 3 rows still, but I can do like the center row, all of the top and all of the bottom. So this will be a little bit easier for me because I don't have anything to line up. But I want you to look right here for Versailles 30 row 3. If we look at row 1, it has all of the pieces that we picked. If we look at row 2, all of the pieces we picked. Look at row 3, it has everything. If I open this, it's the whole design. And they're all froze together. It saved it as one big piece. I don't want this. So I'm going to hit clear all. Go back over to my Pro Stitcher, or to my designer. And the reason it did that is because we didn't hit selected. We forgot to hit that box. So I'm going to just select the design. So if this happens, you just come back here, select the design you want, File, Save As, change it to my HQV, and then I'm just going to say Versailles 30 row 3. I'll pick that file name. It shows what it currently is, and we know that's not right. So we're going to hit save. Usually you get a ding or something, and do you want to replace it? Yeah, I do. So now if I go back to my Pro Stitcher, design open, if I look at, it didn't, did I? Oh, I forgot to hit the, I forgot to select the button again. Okay, so this time it's really going to work. See, this is what I start talking and then I forget. Selection only, HQV, row 30, row 3. We're saving over this correctly this time. Yes. And now when we go over to Pro Stitcher, you can see that Versailles 30, row 3 is just that bottom row that we wanted. So we've just taken these elements for this whole cloth into Pro Stitcher, or into Pro Stitcher Designer, set them up exactly how we wanted it. So if we wanted to make any changes, if you wanted this piece to be longer and skinny and come out to here, you can do that. You have full editing capabilities over in Designer. But we took everything Designer, set it up, and in the next video, we're going to go stitch this out. And I'm going to show you how the way that we set it up, because we used to origin and we built everything around that, we're going to be able to align everything with the align 0 or the reposition 0 feature. The other thing I want you to notice on this, and I'm going to view stitches really quick, or realistic, is that this design, the only places that things touch are at these corners with the L shapes. So here, 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 and here. Is it easy to like come in and reshape these and move them and set this up? Probably not the easiest, but it's not hard. I mean, you watch me do it. I've walked you through it. I've shown you how to do it. So it's a really good place to start. The nice thing about this whole cloth is that none of these pieces touch. There's not things you have to line up like yesterday. In the Midas, there were those intersections we had to hit. These don't have any intersections. So if you're stitching something like this, other than matching these 2 points and these 2 points, everything else floats with a little bit of a buffer. So you're going to be able to stitch this out with a little less worry if things shift a little bit. And it's still going to look great. And with all that spacing, you're never going to know if something isn't exactly where it's supposed to be. So I really like this design for that aspect. So I will see you back here in a second.
All right, everyone. So that was setting the design up, getting it ready for us to take to the machine, saving it as a design file so the machine can actually read it. And so thank you for joining me. That was a lot. There's been a lot going on. I woke up at 2 a.m. and I'm crazy and I got to get through this. But 2 a.m. But thank you for joining me. Next week we will do the rest. We will stitch it out, load it up, stitch it out, do all that, play with metallics. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's just quilting. We want to have a good time. I hope you're having a wonderful day and we'll see you next week, everyone.